Welcome back. Hope you had a nice little break, and now we will return with the panel discussion. And this panel will be about robots for all, but first of all we will have a small chat with each of the members of the panel and then bring back all of them to the discussion. And first of all, we have our first panelist, who is Amanda Stenberg from Kulturhuset here in Stockholm, which is in English the Swedish Art Centre. And she has had a project together with Charlie Caper, who is the Chief Creative Officer here at Furhat, and the 1013, which is a library unit for children ages between 10 to 13 at Kulturhuset. Great to have you here, Amanda.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you. I've understood that the library 1013 is not a usual library. What is it?
Well, the thing that's most unusual is that we only let kids between 10 and 13 into the library. So if you're younger and older, especially adults, they're not even allowed to come in and look. So it's really a children's library. And we have a big kitchen, we have a big art studio, all the best books, but we've tried to create like a really creative library and a safe space for this group.
Interesting. Really nice to not have any parents.
Amazing.
Yeah, I would like that in that age. And the project with Furhat, we actually have a small video that we're going to show what you did at the library. Nice, but what did Furhat do?
Well, we have it in the library, and it's actually called Uno because it's number 1, and it just hangs out in the library and talks to the kids. And we've had it in the library for like a year and a half now, maybe. And like the first months, it was not connected to AI, so it kind of recorded the questions that the kids asked, and then we as staff went in like afterwards and just answered all the questions, which was so much fun because we could also let it say things that we as adults in a children's library might not say to our kids. And together with Charlie, who's been like amazing in this project, we've given Uno kind of a bit of an obnoxious personality. It's really self-centered and thinks the world of itself, because we've seen with the kids having like if it's a bit of a douche, it's easier for the kids to kind of question the information that it gets. And sometimes it's amazing when they use it to do their homeworks, to get like explaining things to them. But it also lies sometimes. Sometimes the kids come and like, I want to borrow this book that Uno told me about, and we're like, it does not exist, that book. So it's also a great like conversation starter about like AI, about robotics, and the kids are very like unimpressed in a good way. Adults who come like to visit us before we open are often very impressed, but the kids are like, yeah, they talk to it and they kind of bond with it, and they mainly ask like personal questions about its private life. They want to know if it has kids, where are the legs, if it hurts, does it sleep at night. And some kids just kind of ask it like a math question seems to be like the test questions.
To see if it's really working.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, what's 22 times 34? And then it gives an answer, and they're like, yeah, you're legit. It's okay, and then they move on. So it's been very, very fun to work with. And when we started this project, we had no idea. We didn't know what Furhat was. We didn't know like about robotics or anything. We still really honestly don't know anything about what's inside, but. And I really want to say thanks to the Swedish Cultural Council, because they gave us funding for a project that was extremely vague, because we had no idea what we wanted. We just wanted something.
Yeah, a robot? No,
not
even.
We didn't know. We just wanted something for the kids to like independently interact with, that could kind of create a bond between them and our library and the books. And the starting point was that it shouldn't be useful at all. No like useful information. It should be fun and for the kids to just want to interact with it. And then we had a colleague who knew Charlie Caper, and he introduced us to Furhat, and we're like, yeah, sounds good.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It must, yeah, I in my own experience with kids, they have so many questions to robots, and it's especially like, oh, who's your boyfriend, or do you like somebody? And I can imagine that you have a big storage of fun questions now.
Yes, we do.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you.
We're going to turn to the next speaker, or the next panelist now, who is Gabriel Skantze. Yes, please sit over there, and then we'll come back to you later. Gabriel, welcome up. Gabriel is one of the co-founders of Furhat Robotics and currently the chief scientist. You are also the professor at the Department of Speech, Music and Hearing here at KTH in Stockholm, the university. Thank you for coming. As one of the co-founders, how does it feel that it is 10th anniversary this year?
I mean, it's amazing. We just heard about this graveyard of social robotics companies. So being one of the survivors is fantastic, and I actually think this is a really great moment in time to be doing this with all the fantastic advancements now in like generative AI and so on. Yeah, I very much look forward to the future, and it's a lot of the things that we a few years ago imagined that you could do, for example, using the robot for training simulated interactions with a virtual patient, for example. We thought this was a great use case for Furhat, but how would you actually build this interaction? Today you can actually do that with the help of large language models. So I think it's a lot of opportunities now.
Yeah. For transparency, I would say that Sweden is not that big. We've encountered each other many times. And I know that you are, for example, engaged in user engagement and like how to keep up the conversation. And one of the biggest challenges today is how to keep the user in the conversation and how to make a valuable and meaningful interaction for the user. How would you say that this issue should be tackled?
I think the important thing is to start with what is this interaction about? Like, why is this interaction meaningful with for someone? And I think if you just say to someone, "Here is my robot," talk to it. I don't think that will create any engaging interaction, actually. So I think it has to be situated in a setting where that interaction makes sense. So if it has a clear purpose, for you, and if you encounter it in an environment where it can help you with a problem that you're having, then, or for example, the virtual patient example, which also makes a lot of sense, then I think you will get engaging interaction, of course, as long as the robot can actually do what you expect it to do. But you should always start there. You should ask yourself, why are you having this interaction with this robot? I think that's key.
Yeah. I also was thinking that, of course, since you are one of the co-founders of Furhat, KTH, the university, has a lot of Furhats. Like, what are the type of projects you're doing right now?
Yes, so we've had a lot of engaging projects. So one is we had Furhat on a self-driving bus, which was actually driving around in Barkarby, the IKEA area. I mean, in the future, you will not have humans on board self-driving buses. So who is there to talk to if there is a problem or you have a question? So that's really interesting. We have collected data that we are analyzing. I mentioned the virtual patient. Right now, actually, we are doing a large-scale study where Furhat is being used as part of the medical education at Karolinska. So the students now actually practice with Furhat. So that's also super exciting. And we just got funding for a project for looking at how we can help immigration in Sweden, immigrants, to learn Swedish in a conversational setting. So yeah, a lot of interesting projects. And if anyone is interested in collaborating out there, please contact us.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for coming. And the third speaker is Håkan Lidbo, who will join us on stage. And Håkan is an artist and an innovator, so a bit of a different crowd from the the usual industry and academic setting that we have here. So you're exploring the intersections between arts, music, science, games, and technology, and bring that into society. You're also a music producer, and you've also explored a few things with the Furhat robot, I've heard. And after this, you can also check out his TED Talk, where Furhats are playing music with instruments, actually with hands, in some way.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. You have a very diverse portfolio. Would you like to say a few words about, like, what do you do on like a regular basis?
It's difficult. I have a very big business card with all the things that I sort of go where my curiosity brings me. My background is music. I work as a music producer, and doing that I work within electronic music, but pretty much within every genre within electronic music. So I had the opportunity there to follow my curiosity. And then I hooked up with people that were actually good at building things, with engineers, and changed directions. So, and I found that I could have the same approach to building things as well, that if you have enough curiosity and have friends that are good at doing stuff, then you can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, getting to know some people at Furhat quite a few years ago, then my first idea, of course, we need to build a robot band.
Of course.
So yeah, of course. So we did that with three Furhat, and then we built some pretty pathetic torsos with some moving parts and created a band. Actually not playing that well, because playing music is difficult.
Yes.
That's one of the best things we humans can do. And it also proves that, it seems today that simulating the human brain was not as difficult as we thought, but simulating the human body, that's very, very difficult, including playing music.
Yeah, that's where we come to a stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I looked through your resume, I saw actually some monkeys playing synthesizers.
Yeah.
Yeah? Would you like to say something about
No,
that?
it was an experiment. There was actually like a little thing we did. I arranged a festival for alternative electronic music many years ago, and because people don't care too much about that, I wanted to create something else. So I thought, how about giving synthesizers to the zoo, to the monkeys of Stockholm Zoo? So we did, to find out if they had any musical skills. But we found out that they did not.
Okay.
No skills at all.
So a monkey and Furhat is on the same level right now, would you say?
With some training, I think.
With some training,
Yeah.
maybe with some arms.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, more body parts. But right now there are some generative music, and many people talking about how to use generative AI for music production. But that is still very much in the hands of people that makes the music. Do you think that we will come to a future where the robots themselves creates the music?
Absolutely.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that most people will listen to mostly generated music more than human-made music, because making music is tedious. And anything that is tedious that can be replaced with algorithms will be replaced. So I think that's one of the things. But it will also divide music into man-made music, which will be much more exclusive than the sort of generative music that will just, be like tap water. Just put it on and just. I foresee that can also be created in real time, and that's an interesting opportunity. So imagine that every person has in his or her headphones a symphony orchestra, a rock band, Asian orchestra, and a soul singer, and the best drummer in the world, and creating a soundtrack for your life in real time. That will probably be possible. But then also to go and see a real band in a small club, or to see a symphony orchestra, will have a completely different value.
Well, thank you for coming, and we'll come back to the panel discussion very soon. But we have a fourth member of the panel that is online. So we're now turning to Ross Mead, who is founder and CEO of Semio in the US, which is a software company developing an operating system and developer tools for personal robots. Ross is also a very familiar face in the HRI community. Welcome, Ross.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Well, you heard from Christoph Bartnek during our conference here that it's a very bleak reality for many robots in the future. Do you think it's a similar way for software startups as yourself are involved in?
I think right now there are a lot of robot hardware companies that are developing, great new technologies to kind of see what's working in the market and what doesn't. I think going to one of the points that Christoph made was like, sometimes they're building tools to show how advanced they are. Um, and for us as a purely software company, that gives us a lot of opportunities to work with those different hardware companies. And so basically, as the hardware companies are deploying in different markets and they're seeing what works and what doesn't, and frankly, if some of them succeed and fail, we kind of just get to be along for the ride on some of those.
Yeah. I also mentioned that you are a familiar face both to academia and industry, and we have HRI in Boulder, Colorado, coming up in March. And I know that you are involved with the International Symposium on Technology Advances in Human-Robot Interaction that is happening in the same week. And would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. So the HRI conference, it's the main HRI conference. It's focusing on the breadth of HRI research on design, user studies, theory and methods, systems, and the technology. And then ATARI, the Symposium on Technological Advances in Human-Robot Interaction, is a focused symposium that's doing a deep dive on the underlying technology that enables the interactions between robots and humans. It's entirely community-driven effort. So it's based on surveys and conversations with HRI researchers from academia, industry, and the public sector. It's 2 days before the HRI conference and co-located with it. We strongly recommend you go to the HRI conference. If you're attending the HRI conference, by the way, or if you're a student, we offer discounted registration. If you are a sponsor of the HRI conference, or if you're a small business, we offer discounted sponsorship rates. And we're really excited actually today to announce that Furhat is actually a TARI sponsor, and you all are offering a 15% off registration discount to the Furhat community. So please check out TARI.
Nice.
And HRI.
Of course. We will also play a short video from the TARI introduction, and then we're going to move to the panel discussion. Stay tuned. So welcome back. The panel discussion will be around the topic of robots for all. So what really is a robot that is for all, available to all, and how inclusive can it really be? And I thought we would start off with Gabriel and to have a quick round of like, what do you think about when you think of robots for all?
I think it can mean many things. One is, of course, for all types of users, like elderly people and children and so on. But it's also, I guess, that's more from a user perspective, but also from developing applications for robots. So how can you make it possible to for more people to be able to develop applications? We know in the past that it has been extremely hard and expensive to develop new applications for robots. So that has sort of stopped or sort of hindered the wider adoption also, I think. So I think with the new developments of new technologies that we have been talking about, being able to quickly create new interactions with just writing a description of personality, etc. I think that's gonna make it possible for a lot of people who are not necessarily technical but are thinking about exciting new applications to try that out and see what it's like. What would it be like to have a robot that can do this task? So I think that's also an important aspect of that concept. Yeah.
Thank you. What about you, Amanda?
I think from my perspective and like the children's perspective that we see, it's like is it accessible? Do they even have the possibility to interact with robot and to do it on the level that they are right now? To have adults that can kind of guide them and help them, but also not like just the possibility to interact with it, because what we see with our kids is it's the first time for many of them. So.
Yeah, and Ross, online, what do you think is Robots for All?
I think just repeating what everyone has said, also I just want to emphasize engaging those stakeholders both directly and indirectly from day one. So I mean, in our personal experience in assistive robotics, we've tried to deploy robots in environments where people were aging in place. And given the height of the robot and where people were, one of the things that we noticed, especially as we were working with Black and Hispanic, Latina communities, is with a robot that has an upward facing camera, you tend to be backlit from the ceiling and a person's looking down. And so with darker skin pigments, it was really difficult for face trackers to actually identify features of the human face. And so this was something that we identified very, very quickly and then trained new models based specifically on the populations that we were working with.
Thank you for sharing. Håkan, what do you think?
I don't know. I was thinking that why do robots think that the robot needs to be the sort of digital and physical entity that has to be the same thing? So I'm thinking more Robots for All. I think more like a Netflix system where you can log into any device to see whatever you want, and maybe you can bring your avatar into whatever robotic platform there is. So there's really no need that the content or the personality of the robot is fixed. It could be anything, and your robot is one example of how that can look.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, to have your personal avatar. It can be in your phone, in your computer. It follows you on different platforms, in different systems, and yeah, that is very much not open right now to be able to have that. But all of you have been working in different projects where academia and the public sector and industry is collaborating, and of course in art as well. Like, how do you reach out to these communities, and how do you create an arena to actually have these collaborations? Like, maybe you want to start.
Well, actually not. I mean, the advantage of being an artist is that you don't have any answers. You ask questions. That's my job. So I don't really know.
But I've heard that you have some kind of creative space where you work at, and there are several different people of different backgrounds that are collaborating there.
Yeah.
So you have one of these like kind of arenas where you could have an idea and build something.
Yeah, actually, exactly. And I mean, robots is one of our expressions, but we, I think what we do is to think beyond to explore what robots can be, except what it already is. And one approach that we had is that we try to build in disabilities in the robot personalities. Instead of make them perfect and as functional as possible, we focus on weird personalities, and also the fact that any robot has a lot of challenges. They are hearing impaired, they have bad vision, they have bad orientation, and very confused in general. And I think it's very important for robots to express that, so we know that it is difficult to be a robot. And that is our approach.
Yeah, that's a nice thought. And it also comes back to the personalities of Furhat that you have at your library. Like, how did you come up with, we're going to go with the douchebag?
I think it was like, it started because we thought it was fun. Actually, we did not have a plan. We didn't have a plan for like anything, in fact. But when we started with it, it was also, we saw that made the kids be more engaging, and it also it has a childlike voice, because we thought that if it had like an adult, really serious professor-like voice, they would not be as critical. But with a child, like their age voice and a bit self-centered and obnoxious, they kind of get furious with it, or they criticize it and they talk back to it, and then it talks back to them, and it kind of creates a different environment. It's not a source of information, but interaction more. And I think also with your question, I think for us the challenge has also been like language, like tech language, and coming from a public library. I mean, listening to all the keynote speakers, I mean, I did not understand much. So I think like finding a common language if you want to collaborate, and like what do we want to do, and try from both sides, like for us to understand that we don't have to understand that much, but also to meet in the middle, because it's easy also when you don't understand like the technology or the terms, you kind of get a bit afraid and you're like, maybe not. So to find a common ground.
Yeah, that's very true. Ross, what do you say? How do you work with other collaborators?
Well, yeah, actually, I'm super excited you're talking about, sort of bridging this gap between academia and industry and the public sector. We just had a AAAI Spring Symposium in 2023 on bridging the gap between academia and industry in HRI. And kind of near the end of that, one of the big things that came out of it, we did a Google design sprint with the audience there. And it was really interesting because at first there was no agreement. And I had proposed the idea of, you know what, maybe it's less about bridging the gap and more about accepting the gap. And finally, we found agreement because everyone from academia and industry yelled at me and said, no, we don't want that. And so what was really cool out of that, we kind of identified problems and sort of proposed needs or solutions that were shared by the community. Major problems included just lack of communication. What's going on in industry is not directly communicated with academia. Unclear payoffs of collaborations and mismatches in priorities and timelines. And kind of the needs, the wants that people had were trying to create collaborative opportunities and leaders to lead them, which I think, by the way, Furhat is doing a great job on. Creating shared resources with the community so that they can collaboratively develop. So that's standards, data sets, benchmarks, and then a big thing was financial support with clear objectives for these collaborative initiatives. So I think, internships, sharing human resources from academia to industry and also industry to academia would be really fruitful in creating this more collaborative environment.
Yeah, and even if we have these arenas where public sector and academia and industry are meeting and actually start doing things together, we are a bit restricted by the technology and the platforms available, and also the big companies that are using the big data that we need to, for example, for the large language models. So, like Gabriel, I was thinking about like how should we ensure that some other biases or things that makes us not being able to be to develop robots for all, and like, so for example, like with using the Google speech text model, that maybe not be hearing all the adults' voices or children's voices. How do we ensure that the robot that we put in a library, for example, actually understands the user?
Yeah, I think that's very challenging. I mean, we have to test, of course, the technology beforehand. It's very important, and not be naive about that and just put it out there and try it in the lab and with our colleagues and see that it works, and then be surprised once it's there. And we should also encourage those who pursue those other types of models where they actually try these things and not just perhaps go with the big companies' models. So yeah, I think it's us as users, it's a bit of our responsibility there, I would say.
But would you say that you feel restricted by big
I think definitely we are restricted by that. I think there are many use cases. One thing, for example, if you want to build a language learning system for immigrants, for example, they will have an accent. So when they, it's not going to be picked up by the speech recognizer. So it's very challenging to build these kind of systems, or for children, for example. So that's definitely a problem. I think, yeah.
As an artist, I was also thinking that, do you find that industry or academia is open to your ideas or collaborations with, for example, with robots?
Yes and no, like all questions. On one hand, I see a change over time, where I think that KTH, for example, was there was not so much happening in that vein, despite the slogan on the wall, science and art. But I see a lot of initiatives happening right now, so it's on the right track. And I also think that there's so many things about robotics that is interesting for artists, for philosophers. So we live in a fantastic time for art, I think.
Amazing, thank you. I think we will be wrapping up the panel discussion a bit, but I have a final question for all of you. And imagine yourself that you're meeting a social robot. Perhaps it is Furhat, perhaps it is someone else in a real world, and it is for the first time. Like, what is this robot really doing in your mind? What are the benefits of the robot, or what value would it bring to your life to have a robot? And I think we're going to start with Ross.
Well, I think to start, I would love to be like a head on stage right now with the rest of these amazing panelists. So just to start, if I could, telepresence in and map my face to a Furhat face, I think that'd be a lot of fun. In general, I'm super interested in entertainment, education, and assistive applications. And so certainly I think there are a lot of opportunities for entertainment, it just being an entertaining device. But I think in the far future, the focus will be more on assistive services, both in home and in the workplace. And in retail settings, I think there's a lot of potential there. So I can see myself walking in, and maybe the first point of contact I have with a company or a brand ends up being something like a Furhat platform.
Thank you. What about you, Amanda?
I think for me personally, I'm easily bored, so I would really like to have it like on the subway platform, waiting for the subway. Just someone to talk to and like entertain me while I'm waiting those long 3 minutes for the train.
Nice. Gabriel?
Yeah, I don't think it's in the homes of people. I think where they make sense to start with, at least, is in public spaces. So you come to a space and you want to ask something, but it's nobody there to ask. If you see a person or a robot there, you would expect them to know something about the environment in which you are. So, I mean, already when we started the company, I was sort of thinking, every time you go to a hardware store, there's nobody to ask, and all these items, and you never find them, and so on. What if there was just a robot there to ask, and they could show me the directions? And I still think that would be fantastic. So I can imagine that be the first case. Yeah.
Håkan?
I could imagine that I go to this seminar, and instead of you, there's a robot.
Oh, so you want to switch me? Okay.
No, I don't. But I think in general that instead of, we very often think that we should replace boring human work with robot jobs, but I think I'm looking forward to the time when robots replace, where they actually what they do better than humans, and that's why we replace humans with robot. For example, a doctor that has more empathy and has much more knowledge than a human doctor.
Yeah, or the Tesla bot dancing for us.
Yeah,
in a more natural way.
I'm not so impressed yet.
We'll see. Thank you so much, all of you, also Ross, for joining the panel.